In the name of God, the most gracious, the most beautiful, most merciful, and also the most beautiful. I was looking at my mother, so I thought beautiful, obviously. This lovely lady here is my mother, and she's the center of my universe, and I love her more than anything else in the entire cosmos. Today is lesson two of lessons from my mother. I'll do a quick recap of what we discussed last time. The first lesson was love your father as he is, and my mother relayed a story about her father, uh, my maternal grandfather, losing his hair. And my mother would always say to him, "Look at the moon," because in South Asia, and perhaps some other cultures too, the moon is an image of beauty. So if you want to say to a lady that you are beautiful, you say you glow like the moon. And obviously, there are some people who say, well, the moon has marks on it. It's bad for your skin and so forth. Uh, there's a whole practice of comparing beauty to the moon. So my mother would say to my maternal grandfather, "Look at the moon. Does the moon have hair? So what if you don't have hair?" So she would say that. Love your father as he is. Um, Now going directly from the father to the child. Lesson number two is motivate your child with the truth. And in this scenario, I am the child because I'm going to tell you a story about my mother, uh, which was a long, long, long time ago. It was around 28 years ago, now that I remember. So I was born in 1987. How old was I when I was seven? So yeah, 1994. This is around 1994. And I remember because since I was a child, I've always loved playing with swords. Um, my brothers don't have this same love, but I used to watch Bruce Lee and I would watch um, whoever else, Leonardo or Thundercats or He Man or whoever. And whenever somebody had a sword, I would be most attracted to that. So every time you take me to a toy store, I wouldn't go to the truck. I wouldn't go to the dolls. I may have picked up an action figure or two, like a Batman or something. I would always go for the weapon. I would go for the sword, and I'd say, "Oh, I want this sword, and I want to be a superhero with a sword." Even now, if I could show you back in my kitchen, I have long, well-crafted, well-built knives because I just like the feeling of having a good, uh, having a well-crafted blade. And this happened because I was in grade two, if I'm not mistaken. So I was around 7 years old, and we were at a store. This is back in Pakistan, Islamabad, in 1994. The traffic was less, the pollution was less. It was a quieter city, and I remember being back there with my mother, and she was looking for something in that region. So there was a toy store. Uh, yeah, it was mostly toys. I can't remember what else they sold, but it was mostly toys called Luna. And it was in, for the Pakistanis, for the people from Islamabad, you'll be happy to remember this. Luna was in Jinnah Super, which is F7 Markaz, which is the center of the F7 sector. Now, Islamabad is made on a grid by Doxiadis, and you can Google it very easily. It's one of the commercial centers of the city. Even today, even after the gargantuan growth of the city, it's one of the commercial centers. So my mother was probably at a chemist's because there used to be a chemist close by. And she was at the chemist and she was buying something. And I had said to her, "Can we just, like all children, we know where the toy store is. So we say, oh, can we just pop in to the toy store?" And my mother, I'm the third of four sons, so she's already used to this tendency. So she knew, all right, we're going to go in the store, but we're not going to buy anything, because my mother used to say, when we were younger, that these toys are only for looking at, not for playing with. So you'd see a toy in the store and you'd pick it up and you just look at it and say, how nice. And we'd put it back and go back home rather than throw a tantrum in the car. Oh, I wanted that toy. Oh, because that's what children are like. Their desires are intense and immediate in the moment, but when the moment's gone, the desire's gone. So, as parents, you need to control that and you need to guide that into higher, elevated pursuits rather than something that could be dangerous to the child. So we were raised with discipline. None of us are spoiled, thankfully. So I remember when I said that to my mother, "Oh, can we go in here? Can we go in here?" She said, "Okay, okay." And after she bought the medicine, she took us in. She took me inside. This was right after school because my mother used to pick me up from school around 2, 3 p.m. and she'd pick me from school and she took me, sorry. Um, and I remember because she went and she would leave my hand, 7 year old, and say, go look at what you want. And I ran directly to the sword. There were there were these cardboard, shall I say, packages, uh, but there was no covering on top, and there was a plastic sword, and there were many of them of different types. And I just went and I grabbed the sword and I said, I want this, and I said, "Can I please have it?" And instead of saying no, put it back, she never, no, she's never said that to us, ever, which is something that eventually, hopefully, when I have children, I'll do it too. She's never said, "No, put it back, you can't touch that." Instead, she said, uh, either she said toys are for looking at, not playing with. That was one. So there was never a I can't do it. It was more complex than that. So your brain doesn't go I can't do it because if you tell the brain you can't do something for a child, then you have to do it. If you tell a child you can't jump from this sofa to the other, the child is going to do it because there must be a reason why it's forbidden. So my mother knew that. So she never said, "No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that." She would say things like, "Well, these are for looking at only. They're not for playing. These aren't toys for playing. People don't play with these toys. This is just to be looked at." And for when I was saying that I needed the sword, she said to me, "Oh, well, get 100% on your next test and we'll get the sword." And 100% at that time was 25 out of 25 on a test in a subject. Um, And I remember that because I was 7 and I had thought, "Can we please have it?" And she wouldn't say no. She would just say, "Of course you can have it when you get 25 out of 25. When you get 100%, this is where we're going to come." So I remember sitting in the car, not like this. I wasn't like, "You didn't get me the sword." I sat in the class and I remember, no, sorry, in the car, not in the class. I remember sitting back in the car and thinking, I have a history test in 2 weeks. I can get 25 out of 25. Isn't that genius? At that moment, rather than sulking and moaning, I remember sitting on the front seat of the car uh, because in Pakistan at the time we didn't wear seatbelts as children. I was just moving. I was like, "Ooh, the next one is history. It's in 2 weeks," and then the term finished. Or either it was 2 weeks or a month, but that was the next test I remembered. I thought, yeah, that's the next one. Maybe I can study for it. Maybe I can study for the test and get 25 out of 25 so I can come back and get this sword. As a 7 year old, that is my world. I don't care about what's happening in politics. In 1994, Pakistan was in this weird quagmire of a political situation in any case. But the point I'm making here is that as a 7 year old, that was my world and I was motivated. I was motivated till the day of the test and after the test and till the day of the results because I was going to get the sword. Now, that's only the first part of the lesson. Motivate your child. That's the first part. So the child was fully motivated. I wanted that sword. I would study for the history test. I did study for the test extra. And this is the wonderful thing about my mother. Um, in England, we have this phrase called faffing about, which means wasting your time. So if I was faffing about and I had finished my homework and just wasting time, my mother would say, "Have you prepared for your test?" And I'd be like, "No, it's in 10 days. She'd be like, "Don't you want your sword?" And I'd be like, "I want that sword." It's a rewards based mentality. So I would go back and study. I did study. I got 25 out of 25. I remember this vividly. And I remember when she came to pick me up from school. And I walked to the car. and I showed her because the test was done in our notebooks. So we would do the test and the teacher would mark it and give you 25 out of 25, give you a couple of stars and sign it. I mean, people who've been to school know how that works. And I got in the car and she said, "How was your day?" And I said, "I got 25 out of 25." Opened my bag, pulled the notebook out, and she was just about to like drive and she stopped. And I opened it and I showed it to her. And I said, "I got 25 out of 25." And I was happy. And she like hugged me. She kissed my head. She said, "Wow, that's so great." Um, Something along the lines of, "Do you want ice cream or what do you want?" And I said, "I want that sword." And she said, "Okay." And she immediately drove to F7 Markers, to Luna. And I remember this so vividly. It's insane how clearly I remember this because we didn't park on the front side of the shop. We parked on the back side. I don't know why we parked on the back side, but I remember this. I was holding her hand like this. I was 7, so she's obviously taller than me. And I was walking, and she was holding my hand, and she said, "Where is it? Take me to it." And I remember, and I was walking, and I went and I pointed to the sword where I had taken it from 2, 3 weeks ago. And she bent down, she grabbed it, and went directly to the counter. There was no, don't take this, no, don't take that. She was like, "Where is it?" "There." "Okay." Picked it, took it to the counter, paid for it, gave it to me. Within a minute, I had the sword in my hand. When I went back to the car, no, I think maybe after that she went to the chemist once or twice because she's a doctor, so she obviously has to go. We went to the chemist and then back to the car, and I remember ripping it open in the car, and she said, "No, no, no, wait, wait, do it at home so you can throw the cardboard away." And I was like, "Whew, I have a sword in my hand. Can't wait to go home and throw away the cardboard and play with it," which is exactly what I did that day. And I relay this message because it has two parts. A, motivate your child. B, with the truth. What that did to me, A, my mom motivates all of us like this, and because of this, I motivate other people like that too. But with the truth, if she had said, "Oh no, we can't go today, I'm too busy, I'm too tired, I'm too this. No, maybe you should buy a bicycle, not a sword, blah blah blah." I may not have trusted her as implicitly as I do now. She ingrained the value of say what you mean and mean what you say. And if you say you're going to do something, do it. End of story. There's no negotiation, there's no try, there's no excuse. You say you're going to do something, you do it, and you go to sleep. That's about it. So for the child, imagine how much trust that builds in the child for the mother. I can't think of many things that my mother said she was going to do and she didn't do it. I can't think of, by many, I mean any. There may be some, but on the whole, I trust her because she comes through on her word. And because of that, and my father's the same too, thankfully. Thank God. If my father says I'm going to be there at 7, he's there at 6:55 every single time. If my father says, "Oh, we'll do X for you," even if it's inconvenient, he said, "But we've given them our word. We have to do it." So because of this tendency in my parents, somebody's writing something. "What are you doing, bro? Man, stop writing on my Twitch. I'm not answering your thing." So even though uh, both of them have this tendency, because of which um, I'm like that too. I'm a bit more like that too. So if I say something, I try my best to do it. And I think for a child to build that amount of trust, because look, I'm 35. This thing happened when I was 7. It was 28 years ago. But every time I think of raising a child, or I have one nephew and 5 nieces, every time I say, "Hey, when X happens, we'll do this." Whenever they do that thing, I make it a point to follow through, whether it's playing a game of cricket, watching a movie, going to buy some ice cream, or doing whatever. I make a point of doing that because 28 years ago, my mother showed me the example of following through. Um, and people who people who have developed integrity over a period of life, they value these things. So if you want to imbue something in your child, like last week I said, love your father as he is. Obviously, if it's a lesson from your mother, love your mother as she is. But secondly, you motivate them and you teach them the importance of the truth. And I'm not going to go into a Peterson type of uh, discussion on why the truth is important, and I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to say is, if you teach the child the importance of the truth and you use it to motivate the child, um, then you instill good character in the child, and at the same time, um, you teach them that good things come to those who put effort towards them. And that's a fact of life. I know there's a lot of naysayers who say, no, well, I tried my hardest and I still didn't get it. No, you didn't try hard enough. Or there were other factors at play. Talking about sword. Okay, I'm going to read this because Ahmed Umair Bhai is one of our loved family members. He's like a brother to us. Talking about sword, my first experience of swinging a wooden bucking was in Skantham. I remember you throwing something small at me in the front garden. Wow, quick reflexes, guys. That was the first time my reflexes were praised, so I couldn't forget. So, Bakin, thank you, Ahmed Umair. Ahmed Umair is a family friend. He's a brother to us, and we all just love him dearly. So a bokken is a Japanese practice sword like they use in The Last Samurai. And I used to have a teacher in England called Mr. Bannister. And Mr. Bannister was Buddhist. And Mr. Bannister he also used to practice one of the martial arts. And I remember being 15 and he could procure a bokken for me. So he got one for me and my friend Daniel Pratton, and we used to practice with it. So great memory, Kazi Bhai. But yeah, the lesson is this. I'm going to stop here, but the lesson is this: motivate your child, but do it with the truth, because it builds character and it allows them to elevate that character and pass on those values. The truth is evidently very, very important, and I'm not going to make a case about it here, but that's the lesson for today. So have a wonderful week ahead, and I'm going to come next week with lesson number 3 from my mother. Thank you so much for your time.